Follow, share and subscribe to our channel to never miss a new video. Stay updated with all our latest stories and content. Göbekli Tepe, the first temple, the forgotten prayer. Companion to Rapa Nui, Atlantis, Lemuria. Before there were gods, before there were kings or written words, before humanity settled into cities or carved history into stone, there was a hill, a quiet barren rise in the ancient lands of what is now Turkey, long forgotten by time. But buried beneath that hill was something no one expected. Not a tomb, not a city, but a temple. Not just any temple, the first. It was discovered in the 1990s, when a Kurdish shepherd stumbled upon a strange stone peeking through the dirt. What archaeologists unearthed would rewrite history. Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years old, older than the wheel, older than the idea of farming. A place built before civilization, by people who weren't supposed to have tools or plans or belief systems. But they did. They carved T-shaped pillars weighing tons, with animals, symbols and beings that don't quite match what we know. No one lived there. There were no homes, no burials, just the structures, arranged in circles, like a celestial code carved into earth. Chapter 2, The Builders Who Prayed in Silence. We still don't know who built Göbekli Tepe, but we know why they came. Not to conquer, not to farm, but to worship, to gather, to remember something greater than themselves. Imagine it, a world where people wandered the land and yet still felt a pull to return to one place, a sacred place. Not because they had to, but because they were called. Called by the stars, called by memory, called by something we've forgotten how to hear. Chapter 3, The Temple They Buried, and then, the most puzzling part, they buried it, deliberately, carefully, as if protecting it, not just from erosion, but from us. Why? Did they fear something coming? Did they know the world would forget, and this was their way of seeding memory into the soil? What kind of people would build the first monument to the sacred, and then walk away? Perhaps they weren't building for themselves. Perhaps they were building for us. Chapter 4, The Prayer Still Whispering. The pillars still stand, covered in symbols, foxes, snakes, birds, and strange humanoid figures with no faces. Are they gods? Ancestors? Echoes of something even older? We don't know. But the energy lingers. Göbekli Tepe is a riddle, a whisper from humanity's dawn saying, you were not always lost in noise. You once walked with the stars in your bones. You once built with reverence, not with pride. Final chapter, The Circle Never Closed. Today we build skyscrapers, we map galaxies, but have we forgotten how to pray? Not to deities or doctrines, but to the mystery that once drew our ancestors to a hill, to carve stone so they could feel closer to the sky. Göbekli Tepe was not the beginning of religion, it was the beginning of remembering. And now, as we unearth it, the question is not, who built it? The question is, will we listen to what they were trying to say? Because the first temple wasn't built to reach heaven, it was built to remind us that we are already part of it. The day the sky clock stopped the fall of the Maya, companion to Göbekli Tepe, Rapa Nui, Atlantis and Lemuria. They were never lost, only waiting to be remembered. The Maya weren't a single people, they were a symphony of cities, minds and stars. Mathematicians, astronomers, architects, priests. They saw the sky not as a mystery, but as a mirror. In stone temples carved with precision, they built not just kingdoms, but cosmic calendars. Calendars that stretched beyond centuries into the future of the universe itself. They were the timekeepers of the earth. Chapter 1, The Architects of Time. In the highlands of Guatemala, the jungles of Chiapas, the lowlands of Yucatan, cities rose like constellations fallen to earth. Tikal, Palenque, Copan, Calakmul, Chichen Itza, each with temples aligned to solstices, equinoxes, and celestial events known only to the sky. The Maya tracked the movements of Venus, eclipses and star cycles, not with telescopes, but with intuition, passed down in glyphs, in stone, in spirit. Their long-count calendar mapped time from creation to collapse, not just of empires, but of world ages. They didn't just count days, they counted meaning. Chapter 2. Then one day the cities were empty. No great war, no final battle, no explosion of ruin, just abandonment. The jungle returned to take back the temples. Roots cracked through stairways once climbed by kings. The voices of astronomer priests were replaced by the call of birds. Why did they leave? Theories abound. Climate collapse, drought, internal conflict, political overreach. Some say the soil failed, others say the people grew tired of their rulers, some believe the Maya foresaw something and simply walked away. But no one truly knows. The sky clock had not stopped, but the people who once read it had gone. Chapter 3. The Echo in the Earth. And yet the Maya never truly vanished. Their descendants are still here. Millions speak Yucatec, Quiche, Quechua and other Mayan languages. They grow corn under the same sun. They tell stories around fires lit beneath the same stars. They carry the memory in their bones. Because the Maya understood something we still struggle to grasp. Time is not a line, it's a spiral. And what leaves does not always end. It returns in a new form, a new cycle. Chapter 4. The message hidden in the calendar. When the Maya calendar ended in 2012, many feared an apocalypse. But the Maya never predicted the end of the world, only the end of a cycle, a moment of rebirth, a chance to begin again. And that was the true wisdom of the Maya. Not to fear time, but to honor it. To live with the awareness of seasons, of beginnings, and of sacred endings. Because the most advanced civilizations don't just build. They listen, to the land, to the stars, to the turning of the wheel. Final chapter. The calendar awaits. So now the jungle is still, but the temples still stand. And if you climb their steps, breathless and humbled, and place your hand on the sun-warmed stone, you might hear it. The ticking of the sky clock, the rhythm of ages, the invitation to begin again. Because the Maya didn't disappear. They left us a map. The question is, will we follow it? The day the sky clock stopped, but the earth kept turning. And the wisdom still waits beneath the vines. The dream of the Sun Kings, the ancient Egyptians, keepers of light, builders of forever. They built for eternity, not for glory, not for conquest, but for alignment, with the heavens, with the Nile, with the soul itself. We remember the pyramids, but that was just the surface. Beneath the stone was a dream, and that dream began not in death, but in light. Chapter 1. Children of Ra. The ancient Egyptians called their land Kemet, the Black Earth, nourished by the Nile, but they believed they were born not from mud and river, but from the sun. Every morning, as Ra rose over the horizon, they saw not a ball of fire, but a god reborn. Each day was a resurrection, each sunset a journey into the underworld and back again. Their entire society was built around this sacred rhythm. The pharaoh was not a king, he was a bridge, a living axis between heaven and earth. Chapter 2. The Pyramid is a Prayer. To us, the Great Pyramid is a wonder. To them, it was a cosmic machine, aligned to the stars, built with a precision we still struggle to explain. Its very shape was a message, a stairway to eternity. But here's what's often missed. They didn't build pyramids because they feared death. They built them because they understood life, a life that continued, transformed, through cycles, like the sun, like the seasons, like the soul. Their Book of the Dead wasn't about dying. It was a guide for returning to the light. Chapter 3. The Science of Spirit. The Egyptians were scientists of the sacred. They studied anatomy, medicine, mathematics, but they saw no divide between the material and the mystical. A scarab beetle rolling a ball of dung was not just an insect. It was Khepri, pushing the sun across the sky. The gods were not distant beings. They were reflections of forces within. Hathor was love and motherhood. Thoth was language, thought and memory. Isis was healing. Osiris, death and resurrection. They externalized the inner world so they could walk through it with reverence. Chapter 4. What was left behind? And then it changed. Invasions, decline, a long forgetting. The temples faded under sand. The hieroglyphs went silent. For centuries their language was dead. Their message lost. Until one day in 1799, a stone was found in a town called Rosetta, and the code slowly broke. As we read their words, it was not conquest or kingship that spoke loudest, but something far deeper. To live rightly, to speak truth, to align the heart with the stars. Final chapter, the legacy of light. The Egyptians never tried to escape death. They tried to understand it, not as an end, but as a threshold. They did not build tombs, they built portals, and they left behind not just statues, but reminders that the light you follow is the light within, that we are not born to fade, but to rise, that if we walk in truth, we walk forever. So when you see the pyramid again, don't ask how it was built, ask why, and listen for the answer. to remember the dream of the Sun Kings. Mesopotamia, the ones who taught the gods to write. Companion to Egypt, Maya, Atlantis, Lemuria, Rapa Nui, Göbekli Tepe. Before history, there was memory, and before memory was passed through stories, it was etched into clay. This is the story of Mesopotamia, the land between rivers where gods were born from dust and where humans first dared to speak in symbols that would outlast empires. Chapter 1. In the beginning, there were rivers between the Tigris and Euphrates. The earth was rich and wild. Crops grew, tribes gathered, and slowly the scattered stories of survival turned into civilization. They built cities, Uruk, Babylon, Nineveh, not with marble or gold, but with mud bricks baked in sun and sweat. The gods didn't live in distant heavens. They lived in ziggurats, towering above the cities, where priests climbed stairs to read the sky and whisper to the divine. Chapter 2. The Invention of Forever. The Mesopotamians gave us something we still use today. Writing. They didn't write poems at first. They wrote receipts. Barley traded, goats counted, temples owed. But over time these marks evolved, from numbers, from ledgers to legends. And so cuneiform was born. Wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay, the world's first script. And with it came the stories. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Code of Hammurabi, the Descent of Inanna. Not just rules. Not just records, but reflections of what it means to be human. Chapter 3. When humans instructed the gods. In Mesopotamian myth, the gods were flawed. They bickered, grew jealous, fell in love, demanded too much. And unlike other civilizations where humans served the gods, here the gods needed us. It was humans who fed them, who maintained their temples, who reminded them even gods must be held accountable. This was not just religion. It was responsibility, a sacred contract. We will serve the divine, but the divine must serve justice. Chapter 4. The Fall Beneath the Dust. But nothing, not even clay, lasts forever. Floods came, wars burned, the sands swept in, and the cities of wisdom, once glowing with oil lamps and ceremony, vanished beneath silence. The languages faded, the myths blurred, and the first voices of civilization were buried beneath the very earth they once ruled. Until thousands of years later, archaeologists found a shard of broken clay, and the gods began to speak again. Final chapter. The tablets still speak. Mesopotamia gave us systems, governments, laws, astronomy, schools, literature. But its greatest gift was not invention. It was invitation. An invitation to see that civilization is not born from conquest, but from questions. What is justice? What is memory? What is the purpose of life if the gods are as fragile as we are? Because the ones who taught the gods to write were not trying to be divine. They were trying to be understood. Tamket, the story beneath all stories. Across continents and centuries, from jungles to deserts, oceans to rivers, one truth emerges. We were never just building temples. We were building meaning. These civilizations were not just ancient. They were aware of cycles, of spirit, of our fragile place between sky and earth. Their voices echo not in museums but in us. In the questions we ask, in the silence we feel beside old stones, in the longing we carry for something we've never seen, but somehow remember. This isn't just the end of a series, it's the beginning of remembrance. And maybe that's what the ancients wanted all along. Not to be worshipped, but to be heard. Whenever you're ready, the next portal opens. Whether it's the trees of the north, the silence of the Indus, or the light of a hidden kingdom called Shambhala, I'll be right here, ready to walk the next path with you. Just say the word,